One thing I have been thinking a lot about is just how special this existence is. And just how amazing it is to be alive. That each of us is, think about it, created from stardust on this floating rock in space. And all of the infinite things that had to have happened in the world to come to you, to come to me, to each of us, and how unique that is. And so just to really value yourself and appreciate yourself. And no matter how hard life gets, because Lord knows my life has not always been the easiest. There have been some really hard, challenging times. Like, it's still pretty amazing and incredible that we're here.
Yeah.
And to not waste that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Every moment counts.
Thank you so much for joining another episode of Life Empowered Living. I am Celeste Cuffie, your host on today. I'm so excited about today's guest. She's just amazing. Let me start with that. And I know you probably get tired of me saying that because I say that about all of my guests. But here's the thing. I am surrounded by amazing people. So lean in. I'm so glad you are here with us on today. Our special guest today is very, very important to me, and I'm looking forward to our time together. But her name is Mrs. Leana Nakielski Mesdjian. How are you today?
I'm very good, Celeste. Very good. Thank you for having me here. I've been looking forward to this conversation for some time. So
we're here for it. Yeah. And when I read your bio, I feel like I know you from the community. I know that you're out, you're working, you're thinking about making, the community better, making individuals, organizations better. I knew all of that. But when I got a chance to look at your bio and I saw that you're an author, you've co-written multiple things, I was like, this takes me very nicely into my very first question, which is, if this current year was a chapter in your book of life, what would it be called?
I think it would be called Reconnecting. And I say that because this year has been a year where I have had a lot of time to reflect. I just had a baby earlier this year after many years of being in the workforce, and I've been home with him this past year. And so this has afforded me a lot of time to reflect and reconnect with all the different versions of myself over the years. And kind of, as you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, lean in to those different versions and see, kind of what next? What do I want to pull through and really focus on for this next chapter?
I have to say, I'm always impressed with you. But even when you talk about reconnecting, I guess my mind kind of went to listening to you say reconnect with my family, my friends.
Yeah, that too.
I know, but you started with getting realigned and reconnected with you. Yeah. How did that come about? Like, how were you able to just okay, this has happened. Let me focus on the baby, or let me focus on the family, as opposed to let me focus on me and my health and wellness?
Yeah. Well, I think just the pure act of getting pregnant, I've always been in tune, I think, with my body and my emotions and my needs, whether it's physical or emotional. And so that's not something new, but, bringing life into this world, it's just like a whole nother space to live in. And so reconnecting first with that physical and spiritual self, I think is what then propelled me into this larger scope of who am I without the work title? Who am I without this membership affiliation? Like, who am I without all of these events or things that I used to be involved in on a weekly basis for years that I'm no longer doing? You mentioned also reconnecting with family and friends, and I don't want to give the impression reconnecting means I've been disconnected from those things, but it's just kind of reaffirming, revisiting. And so with family, I don't know that I've ever felt like I, need to revisit that, but it's a new situation now, having a baby into the household, very different. And so that's where, I don't know if I've answered your question, but just where I think this desire and ability to reconnect has come from.
Yeah. And I think that that's important, though, that we do work to consistently stay true, right? And align and stay connected with ourselves, because that actually strengthens the relationships, in my opinion, with others that we seek to have those relationships with. And one of the things that you also talked about was being the daughter of an immigrant. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So my mother is from Ecuador.
Okay.
She came to the U.S. in the mid-'70s with my father, who is from Milwaukee. He's I say he's Milwaukee Polish because that's a special kind of Polish. And anyhow, so I grew up in this very multicultural, bilingual environment where, some weekends would be Spanish only, with my mom's family, very rich in culture. And then, other weekends would be Green Bay Packer games and, very Wisconsin-y experiences. And so just being able to learn how to navigate those different spaces while, to your earlier comment, being true to who I feel I am and myself, I think has really strengthened that sense of self-identity. I didn't always feel that way.
Right.
There were many, many years actually as a younger person where I felt confused or wanted to fit in, and I didn't see a lot of other people like myself.
Right.
And so that made it challenging. People ask a lot of questions and make you feel othered. But as I came to appreciate and learn more about my culture, learn more about my mother, traveling to Ecuador has certainly helped with that. It's something I've embraced and really love, and is now definitely just a part of who I am.
Yeah. And so, and I love that. And that actually was my next question. With the realigning, the reconnecting, the understanding of your history, your heritage, the blended cultures, and then growing up in Milwaukee.
Well, actually, I grew up in Madison.
Oh, did you?
I did, which was why I say there were many people like myself. It was very, I think there were probably 3% Latinos in Madison, and most of them were Mexican or Puerto Rican. So it's even then, it's oh, Ecuador, where in Mexico is that? Oh, good Lord, help me. So yeah, I had kind of a foot in Madison, Milwaukee. All of my relatives most of them in Milwaukee. So it was very kind of like a second home to me. But I really grew up in Madison.
Well, and that actually, again, just helps reinforce the value of understanding who you are. What were the processes? What were the steps? What was your navigation like to figure out who you are and then be okay with it?
I think with every crossroad I've had in my life, where you have big decisions to make, whether it's taking a job, leaving a job, being in a relationship, leaving a relationship,
right?
Schools, just big decisions. I think every time I've made one of those big decisions, I have affirmed for myself, this is who I am. This aligns with my purpose. This aligns with my interests, with my talents and my gifts that I have to offer this world. And sometimes you make the wrong decision and you don't really know until you've lived through it. But then that, in many ways, can also show you who you aren't. And so I think it's just been through those life experiences. My first trip to Ecuador was, I think, when I was 12. My parents had took our whole family. Is when I really learned to appreciate my culture. And I think it was because for the first time I was exposed to so many people speaking Spanish. I had grown up in Madison where speaking Spanish out in the community in school or around my friends was weird. It was different. It was what is that? Who are you? And then I'm in this space, this place, this
That's
perspective. Yeah. Just the power of place and how that shifts your perspective. And helps you kind of unpack these beliefs you might have about yourself, where I was like, oh my goodness, there's toddlers and grandmas and grandpas and people all in between, and everybody speaks Spanish here. It's totally normal. And so it's oh, it isn't me, it's this place. And so, at a young age, I think that helped me reframe a lot of those other experiences I would have in life. on how to view them. You know, is it me or is it them?
Is it their lack of understanding?
Right.
Yeah. I love that so much. And as you were talking about just navigating the life's, right, the ups and the downs, what works, what doesn't work, those things, one of the things that came to mind for me, for you, was courage. Now, you talked about being a parent and being a new parent, but also having older children. We talked a little bit earlier. How do you teach courage to to anybody?
I think, well, when I think about that, I think about myself and how do I learn best? I really, people say this world is a theater and we are all its actors. I believe this world is a classroom and we are all its teachers and students. And I really do believe that each one of us has something to teach and something to learn. And so I learn courage by witnessing it in others, whether it's the courage to stand up for what's right, the courage to speak up in an uncomfortable situation, the courage to try something new. And so meeting folks, seeing people in the community doing things has given me, I think, in some ways, courage. And so to teach that, to my children, for example, I think the best way you can do that is just by doing it and being courageous. I'll share one little story with you. I'll never forget this moment. My son was about, I don't know, maybe 11 or 12. And it was 2015. I had just decided to go back to school for my MBA. So mind you, I had 3 children under 12. At this moment in my life, I was a single parent. And I signed up to go back to UW-Madison. It was every other weekend. I was still working full-time job. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this because I really want to develop myself. And I started school, and my kids would see me doing homework at the table sometimes, or they knew Tuesday nights I had my team conference call. And one morning I was driving my children to school, and my son goes to me, and he goes, Mama, and we had been talking about college, right? Because I think it was around his birthday, because he was like, oh, I can't believe I'm going to be 13 soon, and then I'm going to be in high school, and then I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, and so we were having, it was around, the context was we were having this conversation about, was he going to go to college or not, and I wanted to still keep that open. There are other pathways, entrepreneurship, right, the trades, college, art, who knows? And so we kept it open. And I'll never forget this one morning, we're on our way to school, and he goes, I think I want to go to college. I'm seeing, you really study so hard, and I'm seeing all that. It was basically just him calling out, by him seeing me pursue this, and some of the benefits that he was seeing, and some of the changes in my life that were coming from it. I had actually received a job offer in between that program. And I think that was connected to that experience, inspired him into, in that pathway. Not to say that it's the only pathway, but, I'm biased. I want him to go because I went. And so it's the path that I knew. But so I think just demonstrating to him at any point in life, you can take up something new. You can keep developing yourself, whether it's now or later.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I've often talked about, especially when we talk about young kids, right, is exposure. And so you've just talked about 2 things that are very important. One is proximity, right? So what's close to them? What's available to them? What do they know? And what's happening in those spaces, right? And then the next thing is modeling. I always call it modeling the behavior. So not only do they know that it's close to them, but when mom is sitting at the table doing homework because she's in college, they also know that they have accessibility to it, right? And so when you think about that MBA, when you think about your academic career, how did you end up in, one, I know academics, you were doing agriculture, and then 2, you were doing social justice. What did that, I'm trying to put it together. And then there's the MBA,
So I was actually a pre-engineering and engineering student in college.
Okay.
I loved math and science as a child.
And you married an accountant.
I did.
Now I know why.
Makes sense. So, and everyone is like, oh, you love math, be an engineer. So I went the engineering route, and I got into my program in Madison. And it was junior year. And I'll just never forget, I was taking these classes and, kind of looking around the room and thinking about my future and feeling like I was in the wrong place. And I know you asked about, how this journey happened. And this is kind of a sad story in the beginning, but I think it was the right story. I originally ended up switching majors because I had these misperceptions about what my experience was going to be like. One, I didn't see very many women in the engineering program. And two, I didn't see hardly any Latinos. And I just felt like that was, to me, a sign that I wasn't supposed to be there. And right? And it's like, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I also had these misperceptions about what my work might be like. Like, if I'm an engineer, I'm going to be, working for the man, stuck in this cubicle somewhere, like no windows or whatever. I think The Office had maybe just come out, that movie around that time. And I was like, this is not the life that I want. I care about community. I want to give back. I want to do something more meaningful. And so I switched to agriculture and applied economics. I had all that math, a lot of, so I'm like, I can study economics like that. That'll work. And agriculture. So my degree is actually in international agriculture and natural resources. And I always imagined myself traveling and living abroad, maybe returning to Ecuador, helping in whatever way possible to address some of the global disparities that exist. And so that's kind of how my career started. And I found this position with Growing Power, north side of Milwaukee, urban agriculture, community food systems, doing a lot of work locally, but also connected, nationally and internationally on agriculture and food and climate, and environment and farms and sustainability. And so like all of that really appealed to me. And so, being in that space at Growing Power, I honestly thought I was going to be in Milwaukee 1 year and then I was going to go move to Ecuador. I did go to Ecuador, but I came back because I love the work so much. I was starting my family. And so each role I've had with different nonprofits along the way have always been, I think, true to whatever calling I was feeling in that moment. And so, I ended up at Growing Power for many years. And, as I deepened my experience there, I was asked to do their funding development. So I started in the field. I started with programs. I started, that's where I did a lot of writing with Will Allen, the founder. But through that, I learned about funding development and fundraising. And I think that's probably the one common thread throughout most of my nonprofit experiences was this ability to fundraise, write grants, do communications, PR, media relations type work, events. And so with these different roles I took, it was usually in funding development or operations. Well, after many years in the nonprofit sector, to your question, like how did you, come back to MBA and then, end up even in corporate? I just felt like we had to do more in the for-profit sector. And it can't be only the public, government agencies and the nonprofit sector doing good. Like we need to shift the way that businesses are operating, both internally, but then also out in community. And so that was one of the motivations to go back for my MBA because I wanted to transition into either a corporate or profit, maybe someday have my own company. That's not totally off the table.
I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's not.
But so I think the central thread, with the nonprofit sector was the funding development. But like ultimately I think what ties it all together is this commitment to community and really at its simplest form, just making this world a better place.
Yeah, I love that. And, it's funny. One of the things that I saw was you are consistently exploring entrepreneurial opportunities. But with that as a thought, but also your breadth and depth and wealth of experience and knowledge, where would you play? Would you do fund development? Would you, what I mean?
That is the question of the hour, Celeste. That is honestly what I have been reflecting on a lot this year. A lot. And one of my favorite quotes is, I might butcher this, but most people have heard, a jack of all trades is a master
of none.
Yep. But a jack of all trades is often better than a master of one. So I don't know like who actually said that originally, but I have seen that supposedly is the full quote. And so, when you take that out of context, it kind of makes you feel like, oh, I really need to like sharpen my skills in this one space. Area. Right. Yeah. But I have found a lot of value in my life experience to know just enough to be dangerous. Yeah. In a lot of different areas, right? Yeah. And so, to your question, entrepreneurially, I've thought about like real estate. Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of fun stuff you can do with real estate development, in particular green infrastructure projects. I've thought about like consulting. I've done some of that already, mostly my grant writing or proposal development. My husband actually has a side hustle business that I'm the advisor, we'll say.
I like it.
No, that's probably an overstatement, but there's opportunity there. We've talked about that. And then sometimes I just come up with like random, not totally random, but I was recently looking at vineyards for sale. I was like, maybe I'll do some kind of like eco farm, tourist, corporate events, education center, something like a growing power, but not quite that robust. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm going to continue to marinate on that this year and hoping that into 2025 I have some clarity. There is one thing though that I have started working on. I was like debating on, do I bring this up or not? I really love writing.
Yes.
And I love reading.
Yes.
So I am working on a novel.
Yes.
Okay, I've said it.
I love that.
And thank you.
And just let me pause for a second. She's working on a novel. And now she has publicly said it, which means she will complete it.
That's right.
And we will support her, and we will read the novel, enjoy the novel, and we will lean into all of the lessons that's going to be in that novel. So I'm super excited. And guess what, guys? You just got exclusive information here. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Speak it into existence.
Right. Yes, you got it. You got it.
So I've started my outline. I mean, I have actually started a handful of books over the years and, jotted down ideas, mostly fiction, sometimes, based on like some true events. But this is the first time that I feel like I've really thought through the whole story and have actually started an outline. Everything else, I just kind of started free flow writing and then it felt crazy. It's like, where am I going with this? What am I doing here? And so
you should smash all of them together and watch it turn into something crazy amazing.
That would be interesting. I don't know, because it's all the notes are written down in little pieces of notebooks that are who knows God where, or God knows where.
I love that. But I think, first of all, you've co-written, you've published multiple articles. You love to do it anyway. And so writing this novel, I think it's funny. What caused the hesitation to even say it?
The accountability and not wanting to fail. Yeah. So,
she's accountable now.
Yeah, I am. and actually, this is the second time I've said it out loud and publicly. So I did my first keynote last Friday and I shared it with the crowd. So, but this is all within a week. So this is, this is still very fresh. Very fresh. It's just, so last year I signed up for this 12-week certificate with MIT and it's all about AI and AI applications for business. I'm like, this looks like it's going to be hard. And it was one of the things where it's like, I'm not going to tell anybody that I'm doing this because if I don't finish, nobody's going to ask me about it. And the truth is, I started it in the spring and it got too hard. And I just stopped. After like 8 or 10 weeks, I was working full time, little kids. It was too much. And so I stopped. And the program support, they were just like relentless. Like, you can do this. You're so far. Join this next cohort in the fall. We're going to help you through. it was supposed to be, non-programming. It was for non-computer programmers, but it was a software we had to learn, and you had to like piece things together. And I was like, this is just too much right now. I think I do have the mental capacity to do that, to do it. It was just not the right time. Where I'm going with all this, in the fall, they kept coming at me like, you got to finish this. Like, you paid for this. You got to do this. Yeah. So it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I got to think about, what do I need to do to make sure that I finish? I posted it on LinkedIn, and I was just basically like, look, community, I need some help. I need an accountability partner. This is a situation. I tried this. I failed. I'm going to try again. And I need someone to help me keep going. And I'll help you too. Like, you do something hard also at the same time, and we'll help each other. And guess what? I finished it. Yeah. I actually did it. But, in the final hour in December, but I finished it.
Better late than never.
I think so that's some of the reluctance is, oh, shoot, if I really say this out loud, I'm going to have to finish it, because I'm not going to want to not finish it.
But, and I think that there's value in that. And I don't know if we're Facebook friends or not, but when I started my doctorate degree journey, I posted it on social media. And every class, I post my grade, I give it my GPA, and the support has been amazing. And as a matter of fact, as life is happening now, we were talking a little bit about all the things that are going on. I literally yesterday called my girlfriend and I said, hey, I'm thinking about pausing, and this is why. And she said, now, where are you in the program? I said, I'm actually on the dissertation. I'm on the research project phase. That's where she was like, oh, yeah. I don't know what you're going to do, but you can't stop. Yeah. And I was like, and it's the support. We need those people. Yeah. So, and that kind of goes back to that proximity. How did you choose? And I know the example that we just were discussing was kind of more of a public forum, but how did you choose your people to help you navigate and support you as you were going through and doing all the things that you were going through?
I think I had a great coworker a few years ago when I was at the Greater Milwaukee Committee. And I think just by nature, he became a mentor friend. And one of the things we talked about, and he first introduced this term to me, I've read it quite a bit since then, but he was like, you need to get yourself a board of directors.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking about my support group and people that I lean into now is like my personal board of directors.
Right.
I have someone that I go to when I need leadership advice. I have someone that I go to, excuse me, when I'm thinking about like career and honoring purpose and my talents. I have someone I go to when I think about like work-life balance and and I have chosen people, and of course it's, an invitation and ask. You can't make somebody be
right.
your mentor or your board of director. And I don't know if I've ever told them like, hey, did you know you're on my board of directors? But I have chosen people who back to my earlier comment, have seen do those things well.
Okay.
Have lived into those and have the experience and, the credibility and the confidence and then the ability and the time and the capacity to also give and share.
Yeah, I love that. And, as I'm thinking about that, your approach then when you were choosing your board was to find people that were doing well what you needed. So someone who was modeling, someone in proximity, obviously, and someone that you were comfortable with having these conversations and dialogues with. But I gotta imagine that, as you were navigating life's uncertainties, right? So here's the question, even when it came to completing that MIT assignment, was it that you didn't think you could do it, or was it that it just wasn't a priority and so you were pushing it?
That one.
Okay.
That one.
Yeah. So how do you prioritize?
Oh my goodness. That was tough. That was tough because I think it's human nature sometimes to want to take the path of least resistance. Right? Like sometimes we want to do the thing that gives immediate satisfaction. Sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think it's about reminding myself just that success and progress take steps, and reminding myself that, certain steps need to be achieved in order to get to the end goal. And so sometimes, I'm not perfect at it, just even on a daily, when I have like little daily home tasks to do, whether it's for my family, my children, myself, I'm a list maker. I like to make my list. I don't know if the satisfaction of crossing things off. I might just get everything out there and then think to, okay, what needs to happen to get to end game by the end of the year? I might chip away at this, and what needs to happen at the end of the day, to prepare for this weekend. And so like on a very functional level, making the list and thinking about that holistically. I am also a believer in like vision boards and writing down goals, and then thinking about like steps towards those goals. So ironically, this is the first year that I don't have a vision board. So it's been sitting there. I've been collecting materials to make one. So I think part of what I'd like to do before the end of the year is make a vision board for 2025. But I think that also helps me think about like the bigger picture. Right. In a very visual format. And that, I think, provides some subconscious prioritization.
Absolutely, that does. So at the end of 2024, the year was a success. It was a success. Everything that you wanted to accomplish, you have accomplished. What would those things be?
Well, I'll have a vision board. I will either, I think it's pretty aggressive to think that I will finish a novel by the end of the year, but I will have, I think that I will be well on my way to finishing it. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see, because I haven't done it before, so I don't really know how much time it takes. I say like my family will be in order. My kids will be happy and they'll be involved and engaged in, schools, their outside curriculars. I think I'll have clarity on what next. So if it is this entrepreneurial pathway, I'll have some clarity on which one. If it's a next job, I'll have some clarity on that.
Even on that,
yeah. I haven't, since having my child, and being out of the workforce, I get posts. I'm still somewhat active online. And so I get, I've had people float job descriptions. I'm like, it's just not time for me right now. But I'll have clarity on, it's time or not. So I think,
that's a successful year.
Yeah, I think for me that works.
And it's so important that, we started off talking about this. It's just the self-awareness and the clarity that you have for yourself. The alignment that everything that we'd like to see take place for you is through your lens, not just, the company wants me, so I'm going.
Right.
It has to work for you as well. But that could also bring about a little bit of uncertainty, right? Or just because you have a list, right? I'm a list. I'm very much a list maker. So in my mind, I know all of the things I am going to accomplish. And I will get up with my list of 20 things. And by the time I get to that third one, the day is blown up. And so I have to put the other 7 to the next day, right? How do you manage the uncertainty of your days?
The uncertainty of my days, how I manage that? Well, I do like meditation. I don't practice it as much as I have in the past, or as much as I would like to. I go through phases of practicing meditation. And I think meditation allows us a moment to pause and just really appreciate this moment and trust that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. And whether or not I know why I am here in this moment, trusting that it is part of my journey and that something good will come of it, brings peace for me. And so when I think of, handling uncertainty, I automatically think of, that can instill fear or insecurity or agitation or, like negativity. And it doesn't have to be that way, and not to say like just go forward blindly into this world. But just to try to be present and trust that whatever it is I'm experiencing it's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's part of the journey, and it'll be for your making. It'll be all good in the end. Yeah, that's powerful. And so, as we're about to wrap up, even though I feel like we could talk for like another 2 or 3 or 10 hours here, the tenets of this podcast and most of what Life Empowered does is to embrace, is to empower, and is to elevate, right? So embracing, meaning we are able to be inclusive of everyone, people that are like us and people that are not like us, right? Empowering, giving people the tools that they need to live their best life and to be successful as they define it. And then to elevate, which is creating the opportunities for them. And so when you think about the space and place that you're in now, what word would resonate most with you now? And is that different from the last 20 years of your professional journey?
I mean, I was feeling everything you're saying. I was like, embrace, empower, elevate. Yes, check, check, check. Like that all feels right. But I will say the embrace, I kind of hooked onto that. And I say that, I think, because of the way you described it. Embrace people of all different perspectives and backgrounds. And in light of the recent elections, it's just, I think it's really critical for us as a society to try to find areas where we really connect and care about and that can align to, versus focusing on our differences. And that's hard. It's really hard, especially when some of those differences are so stark and extreme. But I really do believe that the majority of people want a lot of the same things. We want to be loved. We want security. We want safety. And I think it's just those that are on the fringes, unfortunately, get more attention. Yeah. And so I think, I don't know if it would say necessarily just for myself in everything, in all aspects of my life, but certainly in this moment, just thinking about what you said and thinking about how close we were to the presidential election, I think embrace really stands out.
It's necessary, yeah. And so as we wrap up, and Leana, I have to tell you, I've thoroughly enjoyed our time today. But as we wrap up, if there was anything that you could tell our listeners today, 1 or 2 or 10 things even, that they could do to live life empowered, what would that be?
One thing I have been thinking a lot about is just how special this existence is. And just how amazing it is to be alive. That each of us is, think about it, created from stardust on this floating rock in space, and all of the infinite things that had to have happened in the world to come to you, to come to me, to each of us, and how unique that is. And so just to really value yourself and appreciate yourself. And no matter how hard life gets, because Lord knows my life has not always been the easiest. There have been some really hard, challenging times. Like, it's still pretty amazing and incredible that we're here.
Yeah.
And to not waste that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Every moment counts.
Yeah. I love that. And I want to add to that, when you say don't waste it, it doesn't mean to do what somebody else does. So you've left us as those that are listening, those that are figuring out what those next steps are. It's not always to emulate other people. It is to maximize what's in us, because we are here for a purpose. And so, I mean, on that note, guys, let's get moving. All right. So thank you so much for your time again, Leana. Thank you all for joining. And remember, live life empowered. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.